Hello and welcome to Connect and Collaborate. My name is Alex Hopkins. I'm taking over for Tammy Schaefer, your regular on-air producer. And today we have here with us Kristen Muzzy, leading to Lean.
Good to be here, Alex.
Yeah, glad you could join us. We haven't had you on for a while, but
I know.
Yeah, welcome back.
Thanks.
We're getting some fun stuff in today. We have a couple of other guests in the room with us. We also have Doug Draper and Evan Price. So we are talking about...
We're talking about the logistics sector of the supply chain. Typically, I focus on manufacturing, which is one part of the supply chain, as you guys know. And we're going to talk about some top issues in the logistics sector with Doug and with Evan. And if I could just take a minute and introduce Doug and Evan. Hopefully, I don't have to use these, but we'll try. So Doug he's the Director of Business Development at Acme Distributors since 2009. And he also sits on the board for the Denver Transportation Club, which is fascinating. We'll get into that later. And he's the committee chairman for their annual educational summit operational stimulus, which I'm super excited to talk about. Doug's got 22 years experience in the supply chain and logistics industries, serving in sales and business development roles, and is highly respected in the community. I know this. I did a little homework on you.
Good.
Yes.
So cost me a lot of money.
Welcome to the show, Doug. Glad to have you. And Evan Price, we're super excited to have you. Evan is a senior quality advisor to the CAP family businesses, working with leadership and employees to define and enhance quality through a continuous improvement approach. Got a great background in Six Sigma and continuous improvement. Evan started his logistics career in Chicago with Redwood Logistics, serving numerous operational roles and managerial roles, driving improvements across the business. He joined CAP shortly after coming to Denver in April, right, for a quality of change, wanted to get out of the Chicago area.
Yeah, get out of Chicago.
You have a problem with Chi-Town?
No, it's just great out here. Going from good to great.
Right. Oh.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Good. And he has quickly become a star contributor at the CAP businesses. I see that as I come in and talk to people. So welcome to the show, guys.
Thank you.
Super
So excited to be
have
here.
her.
Yeah, welcome.
Great to have you. And I just want to take a moment, if we could. Today's Veterans Day, and I just want to give a shout out to all the veterans, past and present, for all those that are serving our country, and just give them honor and respect today. I actually wore a pin that my grandfather, who was in World War II, his flag pin. So just want to give a shout out. I'm a huge fan of the veterans in our military, and I think we all share that. So
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Happy Veterans Day to everybody.
Yes, thank you so much for serving.
Yes. So our topic, as I said, is talking about the logistics sector in the supply chain and discussing top issues in the logistics sector, which I was shocked because I really I focus a lot in the manufacturing. I mean, that's my day job. So I wanted to see how big the logistics sector was, and it's over $4 trillion
Correct.
annually. That's massive.
Yeah.
That's massive. I was blown away. But when you think about it, and especially on the coast, on the highways, we see the trucks. But when you're on the coast and on the piers, and you see the big giant cargo ships. What do you call them? Cargo ships?
Yes. Ocean steamliners.
Yeah, they're huge. I mean, they're massive. They're huge. So it's a massive industry. I pulled up some research, and now I will have to put my glasses on. Yes. So Capgemini did a study, and they just published a study in October last month. And according to this logistics study by Capgemini, they're cutting transportational costs makes the top of the list as far as concerns for the logistics industry. But they also identified other pain points that make the list as well. But at the top is the need for greater innovations and technology advances while remaining budget conscious. So the top issues that they identified were fuel costs, business process improvement, improved customer service, economy, driver shortage and retention, which is I'm very passionate about, workforce skills gap, government regulations, environmental issues, technology strategy and implementation. So those issues, do you agree with the study that Capgemini came out with? What would you add to it?
I would agree 100% with that. And to be frank, I would probably jump in and say the driver shortage, in my opinion, is massive. Right.
Really?
I know there is technology coming down the road, and we spoke
The
earlier.
autonomous, when are autonomous trucks going to come down the road?
Yeah, it depends on who you ask, right?
Yeah, right.
What is it defined as autonomous? But you still need people to drive the truck and sail
Right.
the vessels and everything else. And the workforce is aging.
Right.
So you have an
Got
aging
the baby boomers
the
retiring.
baby boomers. And then you have the millennials and a younger generation that has a perception that maybe driving a truck, and we'll talk about this with workforce development, may
Right.
not be a career choice that they want to go into. So you
Right.
have a lot of people exiting the industry and not as many people coming into the industry. So where does that
Yeah.
leave us? It means there's not enough trucks and a lot of shortage in capacity.
Yeah.
So if we had 10 trucks to move product from Denver to Kansas City, we may only have 9.1 trucks to do that in the future, and that doesn't seem like much, but the trickle-down effect can really impact speed, efficiencies,
Absolutely.
and cost in a big way. So I personally believe that work shortages and the aging workforce in the logistics industry is going to be a major impact. And I think we're just seeing it now.
Yeah.
We're talking about it now. We're going to see
Absolutely.
it
Absolutely.
in the next 5 to 10 years.
And it's got to affect quality, though, too. Because you think, people are going to stretch the limits, right, on how many hours they're driving on the road, right? And that's kind of frightening.
Yeah, it is. And just like you'd mentioned, government regulations, there's always a regulation for something, and rightly so in some instances. But
Right.
there's something called the electronic ELD.
ELD, we will talk about that when we come back after this
Perfect.
break. Stay with us here on Connect and Collaborate, cobrt.com/live. Join us on YouTube. Thanks.
Thank you.
Welcome back to Connect and Collaborate. I'm Alex Hopkins, taking over for Tammy Schaefer, your regular on-air producer. We're having a great conversation today. We're talking about logistics, sector of the supply chain. Kristen Muzzy from Leading to Lean focuses on manufacturing usually, but we want to take a different route.
Logistics is an important part of the supply chain because we manufacture the goods, but we have to get in the raw material and we got to ship it out. So we've got Doug Draper with Acme Distributors. And we've got Evan Price with the Cap family. So we're talking about ELD regulation.
Yeah, exactly. So you guys will have to make note that December 18th is a very important date. It's not the last day to shop for Christmas or anything, but
Oh, good. That's the first day I start shopping.
gotcha.
So good to
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
No 24th here.
electronic logs is basically what it is. So we talked a little bit about regulation
Yeah.
and
Interesting.
things of that nature. So anyway, there's to keep the road safe. The government has different regulations. How long can a driver be on the road? When does he need to stop? When does he need to sleep? And how long does
Right.
it take to reset before
Right.
he feels comfortable to get on the road? Up until December 18th, all that is done manual.
I was going to
through
say, I remember the clipboards.
Yeah.
Right?
Smokey and the Bandit, the whole bit, right?
Right.
It's
Yeah.
the logs.
Yeah.
And let's just say that there are opportunities to maybe extend those logs, or some people have said that there's often 2 logs in the book because you want to get to your next job and you want to make sure that you can make as much money as you can.
Yeah.
Right.
The joke is if the wheels aren't turning, you're not earning. Right. So
Right.
you want to
That sounds like a Smokey and the Bandit
it
kind
is.
of
Yeah, it's one of my favorite movies, right? So anyway, the electronic version of that is coming into play on the 18th of December. And so there's a big concern that you talk about capacity, where somebody that may have
Sure.
taken 12 hours to do their route or their line haul, now they're going to be restricted to 11 hours. They may have always been restricted to 11, but they've pushed that extra hour. Now that's not going to happen. So that's just going to add to capacity constraints. It's a great regulation. It's needed out there. Safety
Sure.
is paramount. But the reality is it's going to be tracked and it's going to be audited. And that is going to impact capacity quite a bit.
Wow. What do you guys project?
Yeah, so they're
for
saying maybe
impact.
a 5 to 10% dip in truckload capacity that is already kind of out of balance when you look at supply and demand.
Oh my gosh.
So it's going to raise rates, right? Which ultimately some of those rates can be passed on to, the consumers.
Sure.
It will increase safety, so there are positive benefits, but basically all of the different supply chain issues are going to be exacerbated by this problem. Driver shortage. Well, now we even need more drivers,
Right.
to cover the same amount of work that's out there. Retention is going to be harder. Drivers can earn less, So these regulations are a great benefit to, the Mr. Consumer out there in the sense of everything is safer, but it's really going to impact our business. Many businesses out there with some supply chain disruption.
Wow.
So we're trying to do everything that we can, as a transportation provider to prepare for it, to minimize that disruption. But we're really kind of taking the approach of an education first approach. We need to educate our workforce, right, our internal employees, but also our customers. Hey, this is coming, right? And here's how it's going to impact you. And here's how internally we're going to work to make sure that impact is as minimal as possible. But it's going to be a big deal.
If they get fined, is it the driver and the company, the logistics, the carrier?
Yeah, so there's a 6-month window where drivers won't be put out of service, but the fines are real. But if a driver does get caught violating, this new rule, then he can be put out of service, right, for up to 34 hours. So if the driver is carrying a super hot shipment, right, that has to be at the customer, and the driver gets shut down, right, in a worst case scenario for 34 hours, that freight isn't moving.
That's a major deal.
Could be a major deal, for sure.
If you're carrying ice cream or something, right?
Yeah, there's going to be ways around it and kind of repowering the equipment, but it's kind of an all hands on deck scenario where we want to minimize that disruption out there.
I have a question about that. So the pilots went through something similar when they changed their hours as well, and so it was a little bit of an upheaval with the pilots themselves. They weren't happy about the rules. They had a whole lot less leeway with what they were doing, and I'm curious, have you talked to any drivers themselves that are upset with this new rule?
This has been going on for years,
Yeah.
right? I mean, the government has been talking about this, and the regulation date has been pushed back, again and again and again, and finally it's real. So, on our end, I think there's a little bit of acceptance at this point.
Yeah.
It kind of is what it is, but it really is going to impact those drivers and their ability to make a living in some cases, and smaller carriers and fleet owners. It's much tougher to turn what already are, razor thin margins into a profit.
To your point a little bit, so. There's about 1.2 million trucks that are on the road, and 97%, I did a little research before I came in, right?
Yeah.
97% of all the trucking companies have 20 trucks or less, right? So you see the carriers out there, the
Oh my
Swifts or the
gosh. Yeah,
Schneiders.
yeah.
Those are the visible ones, but the reality is the vast majority are small, independent carriers. So we were talking about the labor situation and how you have an aging driver workforce. So there was a conference call I was on earlier, actually last week, and one of the statistics was 15% of the drivers out there are just not going to comply. And then one of the questions I said is, well, they have to comply, so what does that mean? They're going to go out of business? And they said, well, not all 15%. But the aging workforce is they're done.
They're going to retire.
They're going to retire. They're just done with Uncle Sam being in their business, so to speak, because it's a guy that's had a trucking company for 40 years, and this is kind of the last thing that's kind of pushing him into retirement. Yeah. So there are some folks that are just like, I'm done, which is going to add to the capacity.
That's going to hurt
constraints.
even more.
Yeah.
The other part of that 15% is they're just not going to go over the road, and over the road means from here to Dallas or Chicago.
Okay.
But there's also truckers that can stay local, that want to come home every single night, and they know that I'm here and I'm driving for 8 hours a day and I'm done. So the electronic logs don't really impact them as much. So you're taking more over-the-road drivers out of the system. You're taking drivers that are just going to retire. Then you have the hours of service. There's a lot of components that are going to come together in 2018, which are really going to impact this industry.
How do they, is there a requirement, a capital investment for the electronic logs?
Yeah, there is. So the government has different requirements based on how large the fleet size is to try to make it just a little bit easier for those smaller companies. There's a lot of existing hardware that is out there today, but unfortunately there are going to be trucking companies that have to buy new equipment. right? And that's incredibly expensive.
Sure.
And the smaller companies, to Doug's point, there's a lot of them out there.
Can't afford it.
Yeah, every dollar counts.
Right.
So it's going to be a big constraint, on the smaller carriers out there.
Wow. Interesting. Well, it'll be interesting to maybe reconvene in February after a couple months or 6 months later, because there's a 6-month grace period, kind of.
Yeah, that grace period, they're going to kind of still enforce them, but not as severe of penalties.
So, very interesting. So, we've got this big driver shortage, and not only driver shortage, but you've got other logistics, employees within logistics, all aspects, and there's a big shortage there. What are you doing? What are your companies doing? What's the the whole community, the industry here locally and nationally doing? And then, Doug, I'd love for you to share what Operation Stimulus is doing to help.
Yeah. Well, to Evan's point, to answer your question, it's a lot about education, right? The perception of some of the logistic industry jobs is not very glamorous, or
manufacturing as well,
yeah,
right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I went to college because I want to be a doctor or a lawyer or whatever, but there's an amazing amount of tremendous challenging and fun careers out there in supply chain and logistics.
And well paying too, with good return
I
on
think that's what's
return on
underrated
investment.
mostly. Yeah, exactly.
Right. So the Denver Transportation Club hosts an annual educational event. It's called Operation Stimulus. It was started by a group of people, one of which was a gentleman named Terry Priest at Coors.
Okay.
And this was this is going to be our 37th annual, so
wow.
about 40 years ago. And there was no degree program. You didn't go to school to be a logistics manager. And so he started an awareness and education with the local high school and trade schools here in Colorado to say, you can help us manage our trucks, manage our raw materials here within Coors. How do you bring in products to make the beer? How do you ship the beer out? Because nobody really knew, was that a career? I didn't know that. Wow, I can have a great career in this industry. So that's how the event got started, and what it's morphed into in 2018 is you can get a degree now in supply chain and logistics from a lot of different colleges across the country, and including North America. So the event is hosted annually. This year it's February 1st and 2nd, 2018. We bring in 17 schools from across North America. There's 2 that are from Canada. And I'll be happy to say that just yesterday afternoon, Penn State, which has a pretty dynamic program, is committed to bring a team. So essentially they come out, we give the students a fictitious case competition. Here's a problem. How would you solve it? And so they bring a team of 4 to 5 students, undergraduates, and they come out with their solution and they present it to judges. And for the most part, these kids are spot on. They're juniors and seniors in the program, and the schools take a lot of pride in winning the competition. So it's usually their A game, their A team that comes out. So they come out and present the solution to the case study. I won't get into too much detail on that, but then we follow up the next day with a professional conference where we talk about real life issues, and we are going to be having a breakout session about the electronic logs, where Coors is going to partner up with one of their providers and talk about a user and a supplier perspective, and how does this affect everybody. So on Friday it's a professional conference, and I joke that it's book smarts and street smarts.
Oh, I love that.
Merged together, because these kids, they read it in a book, and this is what's supposed to happen, and then you hear what reality is, and it's a great opportunity. And we bring in companies that are doing interviews and things of that nature. So it's a pretty dynamic event. I'd like to talk more about it.
Fascinating.
We will talk about that when we come back.
Awesome.
In the meantime, check out the video at cobrt.com/radio and find Kristen Muzzy's page, and we have a link for a video for you to watch about Operation Stimulus. We'll be right back here on Connect and Collaborate. Stay with us. Thanks. Thank you so much for staying with us here on Connect and Collaborate today. We are having a great conversation about logistics, the sector of the chain supply logistics. We have Kristen Muzzy here with us, one of our recurring guests from Leading to Lean. She focuses
Great to be here.
Thank you. She focuses on manufacturing usually, but we do have 2 experts here with us. We have Doug Draper from Acme Distribution and Evan Price from CAP Logistics, the CAP family, I should say. So We were just talking about Operation Stimulus, which if you do want to see that video, it's at cobrt.com/radio, and we have that available for you. But in the meantime, let's hear a little bit more about this.
Sure.
Yeah.
And if you want to come and see it in person, it's February 1st and 2nd.
We're at
the Renaissance Hotel, which
I
is
love
at
that hotel.
I-70 and Quebec, just
Yeah.
right down the street. So I was saying that you have this amazing group of kids that come in from all over.
Roughly, what's the how
about
many
110. Is that
Oh
what
my
you're-
gosh! Yeah.
Cut you off, right?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
That's
about 110 students and professionals. So think of this room with 110 energy-filled students. They're excited about, they're passionate about logistics and supply chain. They're presenting their solution to judges, and the judges are just professionals in the industry here locally. And so they're presenting. We have this professional conference on a Friday. There's a big networking reception on Thursday evening, which anybody is welcome to attend. There's companies that are in and out of there interviewing the students. We were just talking about a job fair off the air, so these kids can come in and do some interviews. And the beauty is these students and a lot of these schools are not from Colorado. Colorado State has an amazing program, and CU's developing. And so a company like a multinational like a FedEx or a UPS would come in and like, well, we're interviewing for a position in Atlanta. I'm like, that is awesome because we have Georgia Southern here.
Right.
And so these kids can get real world interview experiences.
Excellent.
And it's really, really phenomenal. You talked about the case study.
Yeah. Tell us about the case study.
Yeah, so there was one a couple years ago, and we don't buy it from anybody. We actually write it, and there was a group of ladies.
Is it the Denver Transportation Club that writes the case study? or?
Yes and no. I'll answer
Okay.
that in a variety of different
Okay.
ways. But IBM, I guess to answer
Okay.
that question, had their operations logistics up in Boulder for years and years. They've outsourced that piece of their business, but there was a group of 4 ladies that worked up there who were very passionate about writing the case, and we called it the Big Blue Machine. And so every year we're like, just come back at first part of November and tell us what the case is. So it's not quite that way anymore, but we have some professors that have helped us out, and the committee gets involved a little bit. But the case would be something along the lines of an iPhone rollout, right? So here's hundreds, millions and millions of phones that are being made in one location, need to be distributed to people all over the world.
Sure.
How do you do it? What happens when there's delays and interruption in the supply chain? And then we always throw kind of a zinger in the supply chain, like you have your biggest shipment of phones, the boat sinks or something like that, right? So being pretty dramatic, but something to really get them to think outside of the box.
Well, something real world, hurricane.
Yeah, absolutely.
Exactly, and
Yeah.
that was one of them in the past. So it's pretty impactful, and I always get nervous and frustrated because you're raising money and creating awareness and trying to bring people in. But this is not radio talk here, right? I've received letters from people that said, because of this event and because of what your club did, I have a job now, and I work for this company, and this is what I do, and I love it.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Like,
that's
rewarding
success.
in and of
That's
itself.
success, right?
Yeah.
So what is it? Is there? Do you guys have success metrics on, like, how many recruits are?
Yeah,
You
so
know,
at the because the event is educational in nature, and so there's no necessarily metrics at the event to say how many kids were successful in their presentation. We definitely have a winning team, first and second place.
What did they get?
What's
Did
that?
they win it? Did
Well,
they
you'll
win
have
a
to
prize?
comment on that.
Okay. Oh, he's a good salesman.
Yeah.
So, no, there's usually some financial, a local company will sponsor,
Nice.
some financial awards, which, a
That's
few
great.
bucks to a college kid's a big deal.
Absolutely.
But I think the real metrics are the universities out there and seeing the enrollment increasing in those,
That's great.
the curriculum. A lot of that focuses underneath the business schools, and where it may have been a course to supplement their business degree, they're now morphing into, I have a undergraduate degree in supply chain and logistics. So the metrics really comes from the university itself in the expansion of the program. And then the growth of the students attending is a direct reflection of that, where we had 16 schools a couple years ago. Now we're up to 19.
I was just that you answered my next question. Have you seen a rate of increase?
Yeah, I've been involved for 10 years. We had 12, then 14, then 16. Last year we were at 20. This year we're right at 20.
Yeah.
So it's pretty
Yeah, I'm sure that a lot of people listening in our community, they have no idea just the complexity of logistics. But that's a great example. If we've got iPhones and you've got to distribute this new release of iPhones out across the world, and all the challenges, and the different carriers, and keep the cost low and get it there on time, and it's pretty significant.
Yeah,
it's really significant.
And you think it's a 19, 20-year-old kid standing, I say kid, but
they are
a student.
Yes.
And the ideas and the creativity is amazing. That these guys are smart, right?
Yeah.
They really have thought it through.
Well, they've been born with a chip in their head
Exactly.
now, right? I mean, it's really
Yeah.
everything is it all simulated, computer simulated?
No, it's pretty old school, if you will. Because part of it is presentation skills. The judges have a rubric that they're supposed to follow, so they're looking for certain. So it's not only here's the solution, and I'm mumbling and not looking at a judge, but you're standing up, presenting, answering questions. It's
exercising those communication and sales skills.
Yeah, it's a holistic approach.
That's excellent.
Because that's what they want to see when these kids are coming in and getting interviewed. You may know how to move an iPhone from point A to point B, but do you know how to interface with people and deal with the human aspect of anything that we do?
It's those technical skills and those sales skills meshing together.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, and it's so important because we have to get creative to solve all these supply chain issues, right? Whether it's the ELD or the workforce skills gap.
Yeah.
It's these untold stories like Operation Stimulus that can get, younger people interested in supply chain and logistics, which is not, typically that dream career. But logistics can have so much to offer, and so that's why OpStem is so great by, kind of spreading awareness, right, at a young age that there's so much that goes into the supply chain. And if you really think about it, everything you touch or buy, goes on a truck at some point, whether it's made here domestically or in China. It's got to get to its destination. So it's logistics and supply chain in general just has so much to offer.
It's a challenge. I mean,
it's a challenge. Yeah.
It's stimulating. You have an interesting background in how you got into logistics. I mean, we were talking a little bit off the air, but what do you find so exciting? Give us a little background.
Yeah. So almost everyone I know, didn't really grew up dreaming of logistics, and a lot of people have a very similar story to mine where I kind of fell into it. I never thought about supply chain and just see the trucks on the highway and never really put too much thought to it. But I was approached by a headhunter and just kind of, introduced to this concept of there's logistics companies out there. And it's been so rewarding. I mean, there's so many different jobs and careers within logistics, right? There can be sales, operations and planning, obviously. Data and analytics is huge. Systems integrators, on the technology and the IT side. We have a quality department, right? So people are just focused on increasing quality and solving problems. Accounting, solving accounting problems related to logistics. So much more than trucks and truck drivers and airplanes and all these other things.
Now, I remember years ago I worked with a company that made a some kind of, it was pre-GPS, that as we know GPS on our phones. It was a chip that they would put in consumer packaging, and it would track how many times the box would turn, tumble, get crushed.
An RFID tag.
Yeah, inside, and it would track all these analytics. And but I mean, that was engineering and then the manufacturing of that, and then the tracking, the analysis to come up with the right corrugated box or whatever kind of packaging, so that the bar of soap wouldn't get crumbled by the time it ends up. Yeah, people don't realize just how much is involved in logistics.
Exactly.
It's fascinating.
Yeah, we'll be right back here on Connect and Collaborate.
Yes.
Thank you so much, Doug Draper, for being with us. We're going to be back in a few minutes. Stay with us. KDMT, Denver. Hi, welcome back to Connect and Collaborate. I'm Alex Hopkins, taking over for Tammy Schaefer, your regular on-air producer, and we're having a great conversation today. Yeah, I'm really into this. So we've been talking about logistics and the supply chain, right? So
the issues in the logistics sector of the supply chain, and we had Doug Draper, from the Director of Business Development for Acme Distribution, and also he sits on the board of Denver Transportation Club and is the committee chair for Operation Stimulus. He had to leave And so we are fortunate to have Alvaro Espinosa, who has been on the show before with us many times. Alvaro is a manufacturing expert. He is an author. He holds numerous patents. He, oh my gosh, you are the founder of Phase 2 and B9 Sigma, and has got a wealth of experience around business process and continuous improvement. And we have Evan Price, who is the quality advisor for the Cap family businesses. And we're just talking about quality, and I was remembering a story about this company I used to work with the GPS devices to track how the product ships along the way, which brings me to a question about, quality is incredibly important. Customers today, it's just an expectation. It's not something that we go out and we pay more for. It's just an expectation, right? And we want better and better and better and better quality. And then from a service perspective, we have to continue to improve the quality of our customer service. And this is the area that you are really focused on. And Alvaro, I know you're passionate about it as well. So Evan, tell us a little bit about what you're doing to help keep that competitive edge with CAP and the CAP family and raising the bar on customer service.
Yeah, so there's a lot of transportation companies and providers out there that are really commoditized, right?
Sure.
If you want to ship something from point A to point B and it doesn't matter when it gets there, that's one thing. But at CAP here, we really try and go above and beyond, and how we differentiate ourselves is really through quality, right? It's through solving problems. And so how we're focused is internally, that's what sets us apart, is going above and beyond every single day, right, on every single shipment. So we're really focused internally on making sure that we can do every single thing possible to make sure the customer gets their goods on time, right? So things happen in transportation, trucks break down, cargo misses flights, but we've identified and implemented this program that really breaks down how can we help, right? What can we do to contribute to our customers' success? And we went through this whole months-long project to really identify, what happens internally here in transportation. We identified from when the customer calls in till when the cash is applied in the bank, we have over 39 steps. It's about 40 some odd steps that we can do internally. So we're really focused on identifying what those different steps are and how they impact our customers' supply chains. So we've really built a program to identify and prevent a lot of those issues at each step so that we can go above and beyond for our customers. It's been a lot of retraining internally, a lot of talking to our customers about what's important to them, and then working with our vendors to really sell quality as well. We're only as strong as our drivers. We're only as strong as our providers and our vendors and our suppliers. And so when we can get everyone on the same page and everyone working together, right, people working together, process working with those people, and technology on the back end to support everything, you can kind of take this holistic view to supply chain where we are out to deliver operational excellence. We're out to solve problems, and we do this kind of from a holistic approach by focusing on quality throughout.
Right. And does this not sound like manufacturing? All we have to do, it completely is.
Yeah. Well, what I got to say, first of all, thank you for having me in the Veterans Day, and congratulations everybody out there, and thank you for the service. Quality and logistics is basically part of the supply chain, and when you do a value stream map in an organization to say how to bring value to your end customers, you include logistics into the equation. You don't only say, hey, is in wall what happens with quality on the products, I mean on the building or in the factories, is you need to go and we track the whole what we call value stream, and we map that out, and we need to understand that information. And actually 7 flows, which is the product itself, information, raw materials, because we need inbound materials to just, be able to construct the products. I mean, all those encompasses what you deliver to the end customer. So one of the things that I want to add is that, in my practice as a consultant, we always go with we say PIT, meaning process, infrastructure, and training. So is something that I always go and tell my guys is if there is no process or a standard way to do things, one way consistent, and then there is an infrastructure to back up that process, it's impossible to train it. And if you don't train it, then you don't have it. And that's a continuous improvement circle. And I think in logistics, at least with Calb Logistics, I've been having the experience that you guys have the traceability across the whole process, and you can have a status, and you can have let's say corrective actions on the fly, and you can actually respond to any eventuality. So I think that's what we look for in a logistic. I'm a user of them,
Right.
and I'm a user of logistics, and I think that's information and responsiveness is the key element of service and quality.
Well, and
Absolutely.
here at CAP, we've tried to adopt a lot of the manufacturing strategies, right, around lean and continuous improvement and visual management, right,
Right.
and quality circles and all these different things that have been going on in manufacturing best practices for years. You can apply to transportation. So we're really trying to
Absolutely.
learn from those best practices out in the industry, realize the important part that supply chain, can play, and make sure that we're holding up our end. So if one of Alvaro's, companies, looks at everything but transportation, we don't want to be that weak link, right? We
Yeah.
have to make sure that all the forethought and engineering and manufacturing, flows right through to the transportation and the customer. If we do our job right, we're seamless, right? They don't ever
Yeah.
hear from us. There's no transportation issues. You don't even have to think about it. And so that's our goal really behind the scenes, to adopt that continuous improvement mindset to make sure that we're transparent to that end user.
Yeah.
Well, one thing that I want to say, and I was kind of tempted not to say it because I always kind of challenge.
Bring it out on the table, Albert.
Logistics is not a value add itself. You
Yeah.
know, it's a cost that you
It
need
is.
to add up to your finished goods. So I think that the future of logistics and the future of quality and try to continuously improve that is to really get into the analytics, because we were talking about the constraints about the drivers, constraints about the age of the drivers and all those things. And I think that in our culture, we need to embrace more about the lean practices of really don't bring goods that are going to be thrown away anyway.
Excellent point.
And I think that if we look at what we need to do as a let's say industry, is to get to the more intelligent side of things, because some of this demand is not even there.
Sure.
We just fill our stores with a lot of goods that are at the end going to be thrown away, and I think that
Which takes logistics to go throw them away.
exactly, and all the cost is compound, because all these people has to push all this product in. We push all the drivers to make it happen, and at the end, that demand is not fulfilled. So I think the future of logistics is to be more like in line with Factory 4.0, where you need to be more intelligent and really understand what is the actual demand, and the demand pool, we call it in lean manufacturing, where what is the actual need of the market,
Right.
and align everything else to that, right? Because otherwise, it's just waste.
Right.
And otherwise, it's just like we think that we need all those drivers and all these vehicles on the road, and it's pollution, it's being sustainable. I mean, I think that logistics, whoever comes up with some type of intelligence to say, okay, this is the actual demand, and this is what we're going to be lining up to, that's going to be somebody that's going to disrupt the market in the logistics sector.
And we do see that beginning to happen in our our world is ordering what we need when we need it, right, from a
Yes.
consumer perspective. And then you add a lot of the new technology out there. I mean, I'm expecting to see at some point going to buy a vehicle or some item, and it's 3D printed right there on the spot.
Yes.
So
That would be
yeah.
super exciting.
Yeah.
This has been a great show. I'm
It
hoping for
has.
that to be the future here.
Yeah.
Thank you, Alvaro, for joining us
welcome.
today.
Thank you, Evan.
I do want to take a minute to say thank you so much to Cap Family for being one of our partners. And Kristen, it's always great to have you on with us.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. So please check out cobrt.com/radio to find out more about today's show. and also to sign up for our newsletter, and be sure to register for our legislative reception that's happening next Thursday.
That's right.
From
It's gonna
5
be
to
great.
7. Yeah, get to rub elbows with some state legislators.
That's right.
Thank you so much. We will see you Monday.